The town of Blackridge was the kind of place people passed through without noticing. It sat quietly between endless forests and a cracked highway that seemed forgotten by the world. Old diners, dim streetlights, and empty sidewalks gave the town a strange feeling, like time itself had slowed down. But locals knew something visitors didn't. No one stayed long at the Ravenwood Motel. It was an old building near the edge of the woods. The motel sign flickered red and blue at night, buzzing like a dying insect. Travelers often stopped there because it was the only place to stay for miles. Most of them left the next morning. Some left earlier. And a few never spoke about what they saw. One cold October evening, a young travel vlogger named Jake Carter drove into Blackridge. Jake loved exploring abandoned places and creepy locations for his YouTube channel. His audience in the United States loved scary stories, haunted locations, and late-night investigations. When he saw the old Ravenwood Motel, he smiled. "This place is perfect," he said to his camera. The parking lot was almost empty. Only one rusty pickup truck sat near the corner. Jake grabbed his backpack and walked inside the motel office. The air smelled old, like dust and something faintly rotten. Behind the counter stood an elderly woman with pale skin and tired eyes. "Evening," Jake said. The woman looked up slowly. "You need a room?" she asked. "Yeah, just for one night." She stared at him for a long moment, like she was thinking about something. Then she handed him a key. "Room 214. Jake noticed something strange. The keys for rooms 210, 211, 212, and 213 were missing from the wall behind her. Only 214 hung there. "Busy night?" Jake joked. The woman didn't smile. "Just, don't open the window after midnight," she said quietly. Jake laughed. "I'll try." Room 214 was at the far end of the second floor. The hallway lights flickered as Jake walked. His footsteps echoed through the empty corridor. The door creaked loudly when he opened it. Inside, the room looked normal at first glance. Old bed. Small TV. Wooden dresser. But the window faced the dark forest behind the motel. Tall trees stood motionless in the moonlight. Jake set up his camera. "All right guys," he said to the lens, "tonight we're staying at the creepy Ravenwood Motel in Blackridge. Locals say strange things happen here." He grinned. "Let's see if that's true." At 11:47 p.m., Jake heard the first sound. A soft knock. He looked at the door. No one there. He opened it. The hallway was empty. Jake chuckled nervously. Probably pipes or something. He went back inside. Then the TV turned on by itself. Static filled the screen. Jake froze. "Okay, that's weird." He grabbed the remote and turned it off. Silence returned. But a few seconds later. Knock. 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 This time it came from the window. Jake slowly turned his head. The window faced the forest. There was nothing outside. Only darkness. But the knocking came again. Knock. 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 From the glass. Jake slowly walked closer. "Hello?" he said. No answer. Then he noticed something that made his stomach tighten. A handprint appeared on the outside of the glass. But the window was on the second floor. There was no balcony. No ladder. Nothing to stand on. Jake stepped back. "That's not funny." He grabbed his camera and pointed it at the window. "Did you guys see that?" For a moment, everything was quiet. Then the handprint slowly slid down the glass. Like someone invisible was dragging their hand across it. Jake's heartbeat started racing. Suddenly, the closet door creaked open behind him. He spun around. The closet was dark. Completely dark. Hello? No response. Jake slowly walked toward it. The door moved slightly, like something inside had pushed it. Jake reached out and pulled it open. Empty. Just hangers. Old blankets. He sighed. Okay, I'm officially creeping myself out. He turned back toward the room. That's when he saw it. The bathroom door was now open. He was sure it had been closed before. Inside the bathroom, the light flickered. And in the mirror, for a split second, Jake saw someone standing behind him. He spun around. No one there. Jake's breathing became heavy. All right, that's enough. He grabbed his phone. But the signal was gone. No bars. The Wi-Fi didn't work either. The lights flickered again. And suddenly, a voice whispered behind him. Don't open the window. Jake turned slowly. The room was empty. But the whisper came again. Closer. Too late. Jake's camera suddenly shut off. The screen went black. And from the corner of the room, something moved. A shadow. Tall. Wrong. It stretched along the wall like it didn't belong to anything. Jake stepped backward toward the door. But the door slammed shut. Locked. The shadow slowly moved across the ceiling. Then down the wall. Then toward him. Jake's voice shook. Who's there? The shadow stopped. Then it began forming a shape. A human shape. But the head bent at a strange angle. And the arms were far too long. Then the shadow spoke. You opened it. Jake's eyes widened. I didn't open anything. The shadow twitched violently. Everyone says that. The bathroom mirror suddenly cracked. The TV turned on again. Static filled the room. And dozens of whispers echoed through the walls. Stay. 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 Jake ran for the door and finally forced it open. He sprinted down the hallway. But something was wrong. The hallway seemed longer. Much longer. The exit door at the end kept getting farther away. Behind him, slow footsteps followed. Not running. Walking. Calm. Patient. Jake didn't dare look back. But the whispers grew louder. Then he heard breathing behind him. Right behind his ear. And a voice whispered. Room 214 never lets anyone leave. Jake turned. And saw it. Jake froze when he saw the figure. The hallway lights flickered wildly, throwing broken shadows across the peeling walls of the Ravenwood Motel. The thing standing behind him was tall, far too tall to be human. Its body looked like pure darkness, but its outline shifted constantly, as if it was made of smoke. Jake's heart pounded in his chest. What are you? He whispered. The figure tilted its head slowly. The movement was unnatural, like bones bending in the wrong direction. Then it spoke. Its voice sounded like several people whispering at once. You opened the window. Jake shook his head quickly. I didn't. I swear I didn't. The shadow's long arm stretched toward him. It moved across the floor like liquid darkness. Everyone says that. Jake turned and ran. His footsteps echoed loudly through the endless hallway. The exit door should have been only a few meters away, but the corridor kept stretching longer and longer. It was like running through a nightmare. Behind him, the shadow glided forward without making a sound. Jake risked a glance behind him. Big mistake. The creature was now much closer. Its shape was clearer. Its face, or what should have been its face, was completely black except for two faint glowing spots where eyes should be. Jake reached the stairwell door and slammed it open. He rushed down the stairs 2 steps at a time and burst into the motel lobby. The old woman behind the desk looked up calmly, as if nothing unusual was happening. "Please," Jake shouted. "Something is in the hallway." The woman sighed slowly. "You saw it, didn't you?" Jake stared at her in disbelief. "You knew about this?" She nodded. "It lives in room 214. Jake slammed his hands on the counter. "Then why did you give me that room?" Her eyes looked tired. "Because it chooses." Jake felt cold. "What do you mean, it chooses?" Before she could answer, the lobby lights suddenly flickered. The air became colder. The woman's expression changed instantly. "It's coming," she whispered. Jake heard the stairwell door behind him creak open. Slow footsteps echoed from the hallway. Jake's breathing became rapid. "What is that thing?" The woman finally spoke. 40 years ago, a man stayed in room 214. Jake listened carefully. "He wasn't a normal traveler," she continued. "People said he studied things that should never be studied." "Like what?" Jake asked. "Dark things." Her voice lowered. "Things that open doors." Jake's stomach dropped. "The night he stayed there," she said, the entire motel heard screaming. Then silence. "What happened to him?" Jake asked quietly. "They found his body in the morning." Jake swallowed. "And?" "The window was open." Jake suddenly remembered the handprint on the glass. The woman continued. "But the worst part was the shadow." Jake looked back toward the hallway. "What shadow?" "The one that wasn't his." Jake felt goosebumps crawl up his arms. "The man had tried to summon something," she said. "But he didn't know how to close the door." Jake whispered, "So the thing stayed?" She nodded slowly. "It feeds on fear." At that exact moment, the lobby lights went out. Darkness filled the room. Jake heard something moving behind him. Breathing. Cold. Very close. Then the emergency lights flickered on dimly. Jake turned slowly. The shadow was standing at the end of the hallway. But now, there were 2 of them. Jake whispered, "That wasn't there before." The old woman's face went pale. "That means it's spreading." Suddenly, the motel TV in the corner turned on. Static filled the screen again. Then an image appeared. It showed room 214. But the camera angle was wrong. It looked like someone was filming from the ceiling corner of the room. Jake stepped closer to the TV. The room on the screen was empty. Then something moved under the bed. Jake felt his throat tighten. A hand slowly crawled out from beneath the bed. The hand looked pale, human. Then the rest of the body dragged itself out. Jake gasped. It looked exactly like him. The copy of Jake stood up slowly and stared directly into the camera. Then it smiled. But the smile was too wide. Far too wide. The TV suddenly went black. Jake backed away. What was that?" The woman whispered, "It's already inside you." Jake's blood ran cold. "No. Yes." The stairwell door slammed shut behind them. And the shadow in the hallway began walking toward the lobby. The woman grabbed Jake's arm suddenly. "There's only one way to survive." "What?" Jake asked. "You must go back to room 214. Jake stared at her. "Are you insane?" She shook her head. "That's the only place the door exists." Jake's voice trembled. "And if I don't?" The shadow stepped closer. "Then it will follow you forever." Jake looked toward the hallway again. The 2 shadows were now standing side by side. Waiting. watching. Jake took a deep breath. "Fine," he said. "I'll go back." Jake slowly climbed the stairs again. Every step felt heavier than the last. The hallway looked darker now. The lights flickered more violently, casting strange shapes on the walls. The door to room 214 stood slightly open. Jake hesitated. Behind him, he could feel the presence of the shadows. They were waiting. Watching. Jake pushed the door open. The room looked different now. The air inside felt thick and cold. His camera lay on the floor where it had fallen earlier. But something else had changed. The window was now fully open. The curtains moved gently in the night wind. Jake whispered, "I didn't open that." Then he heard the old woman's voice from the hallway. "You must close the door." Jake turned. The hallway behind him was empty. The woman was gone. He stepped inside the room. The door slammed shut behind him. Locked. Jake rushed to the window and tried to close it. But it wouldn't move. It was stuck. The forest outside looked darker than before. Too dark. Almost like the darkness itself was alive. Jake leaned closer to the window. That's when he saw movement among the trees. Dozens of shadows standing between the trunks. Watching the motel. Watching him. Jake stepped back. This isn't real. Suddenly the bathroom light turned on. The mirror inside cracked further. Jake slowly walked toward the bathroom. Inside the mirror, he saw someone standing behind him again. But this time he didn't turn around. Because the reflection showed something worse. The thing behind him had his face. But its eyes were completely black. The reflection smiled. Jake spun around. Nothing there. Then the closet door slammed open. Inside the closet, there was a staircase. Jake frowned. That wasn't there before. The staircase went down into darkness. From below, he heard whispers. "Come down. Finish it." Jake grabbed a flashlight from his backpack and slowly descended the steps. Each step creaked loudly. The air smelled damp. The staircase ended in a small hidden basement room. In the center of the room stood an old wooden table. On it lay strange symbols carved into the wood. A dusty book rested in the middle. Jake opened it carefully. The pages were filled with strange writing and drawings of shadow-like figures. One page showed a symbol labeled, "The Door Between Worlds." Jake turned another page. It explained the ritual the man had tried to perform 40 years ago. Jake whispered the words slowly. He opened a gateway, but never closed it. Suddenly footsteps echoed behind him. Jake turned. The copy of himself stood at the top of the stairs. The fake Jake smiled. "You shouldn't have come down here." Jake backed away. "What are you?" The creature tilted its head. "I'm what happens when someone opens the door." Jake looked at the symbol on the table. "Then how do I close it?" The creature's smile widened. "You don't." The basement lights exploded. Darkness swallowed the room. And dozens of shadows began crawling out of the walls. Jake ran toward the table in panic. The shadows were crawling across the floor like living smoke. The fake Jake began walking down the stairs slowly. "Too late," it said. Jake grabbed the dusty book and flipped through the pages desperately. There had to be something. Some way to stop this. Then he saw it. A final page hidden at the back of the book. It described a closing ritual. But the words made his heart drop. To seal the door, one must remain inside it. Jake whispered, "No." The shadows were getting closer. The fake Jake stood only a few steps away now. "You opened it," the creature said calmly. "So you belong to it." Jake looked up. Actually, I didn't open it. The creature stopped. What? Jake smiled slightly. You did. Before the creature could react, Jake grabbed the knife lying on the table and carved the symbol from the book into the wooden floor. The ground began to shake violently. The shadows screamed. A swirling vortex of darkness opened in the center of the room. The creature's smile disappeared. What are you doing? Jake stepped backward, closing the door. The vortex began pulling the shadows toward it. The fake Jake screamed as its body stretched and twisted. No. You can't. The vortex dragged it closer. Jake held onto the table as the wind howled around the room. The creature reached toward him desperately. You'll be trapped too. Jake nodded slowly. I know. With one final roar, the vortex swallowed the creature. The shadows vanished instantly. The vortex shrank, then disappeared. Silence returned to the basement. Jake sat on the floor breathing heavily. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. He slowly walked back upstairs. Room 214 looked normal again. The window was closed. The hallway lights were stable. Jake walked down to the lobby. The old woman stood behind the desk again. She looked surprised. You're alive. Jake nodded. I closed it. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she smiled sadly. That's what the last man said too. Jake frowned. What? Suddenly the lobby lights flickered again. Jake felt a cold presence behind him. A shadow slowly appeared on the wall. But this time, the shadow looked exactly like Jake. The old woman whispered. Once you open the door, it never truly closes. Jake turned slowly. And the shadow smiled.